As Black girls, it was exploding.
The 80s was just a magical time in fashion.
You felt fashion on the streets.
When I first started modeling, that was when hip hop started, like in the 80s, and Run DMC was talking about my Adidas.
There was like the influx of like the supermodels.
Naomi, Karen Alexander.
It was that moment when the world's eye is on fashion.
This is the Black Girls Coalition.
Here's the thing about Black models who become successful have in common. It's tenacity. Beverly Johnson was the first Black model to appear on the cover of American Vogue in 1974. Let me tell you this story, because I love this story. So Beverly Johnson got it into her head that she wanted to be a model. So she went around to agencies, and every agency in New York told Beverly Johnson no. Even the Black agencies in New York told Beverly Johnson no.
So I went to all the modeling agencies, Eileen Ford. And they went, right. Nah, I don't think so.
Beverly Johnson was on the covers of Glamour and Mademoiselle magazine before she was on the cover of Vogue, and she didn't even have an agent. It was her out there like pounding the pavement, doing the footwork, meeting with designers, meeting with photographers, meeting with stylists, basically saying, shoot me, because I can't get an agency. Tenacity.
It wasn't the easiest to try to figure out your way in an industry that didn't see you for who you were.
It's harder to get into the room. I worked so hard.
There isn't a lot of forgiveness if you mess up.
There's a lot more models that don't make it than make it, because there is a new breed that come in all the time.
I was sleeping on the floor. I had no money for a winter coat. I was definitely like dollar in a dream. I was broke, you know what I mean? But I was a hustler. I went from door to door.
I am willing to like chop my hair off. Do I have to gain weight, lose weight? If I fall in my face, I know I tried.
People booked me and continue to book me because they know when I show up, I'm gonna show out.
Every job that came, I did it. It didn't matter how tired I was.
I remember I went to my agent, Eileen Ford. Well, we don't have any Black girls in this agency. I don't see how you're ever going to model. When I was like 17, so I don't know if you'll have a career. This is going into my 6th decade of modeling. She was wrong. Now I can laugh.
A prime example of tenacity leading to stardom is none other than the amazing Karen Alexander.
During the interview, took one marker.
I was not an overnight success by any means. I didn't really appreciate what it actually takes to be a model, but I remember reading an article about women who are now some of my favorite models, Beverly Johnson, Iman, Peggy Dillard, and each one of them talked about the advantages of being a model. They all had their college degrees, so it was the first time I thought, now that's a cool job. I started working at 15, and my parents said, sure, you try your luck, go ahead. So I took these photos that my cousin had done of me, and I went on all these little open calls, and I got turned down by every single one for probably about a year, until I was about 16. You know, I had agents tell me I was too dark, too tall, too muscular, and my dad would always say to me, someone's gonna be a model, why not you? I think that because I was a slow burn, I mean, it took me a long time, and I think in some ways that was a really good thing, because I really appreciated every job. And one of my first jobs, it was like the little thing that's in the newspaper on Sunday. My mother was, and I was as proud of that little thing as I was as my Vogue cover. I just really wanted to do it. And when I did it, I was thrilled. I didn't expect to do well. I don't know why it's gonna make me cry. You know, I would work with these big photographers, and I could not believe my luck. I mean, I was like pinching myself. Sometimes I would go into the bathroom, like they would do my hair and makeup, and I would go to the bathroom like, how did I even get here? This is just beyond what I thought it would be. And I'm very emotional about it, I think, because You know, when you want something so badly, and then you get it. I never lost that feeling of how lucky I was. Yeah, and it just means a lot to be here today to talk about it. So that's what all that was about. Now I'm gonna pull myself together.
During the 80s, things got bigger and better for Black models. It was that moment when the world cared about fashion. We saw the emergence of the super designer.
And this is when fashion shows were like, you had to go in person. You had to get a ticket.
Rock stars and royalty are sitting at the front row. So there's this moment when the world's eye is on fashion. On Saturday morning, somebody in Kansas can turn on Style with Elsa Clinch. Fashion television. There's MTV's House of Style.
Welcome back to House of Style, coming to you from Little Italy in New York City. We just can't get enough of Naomi Campbell.
We don't like wearing clothes, no, that's a joke.
Naomi, behave yourself.
There's only one Naomi.
When Naomi arrived in fashion, it was the perfect storm.
Naomi literally came out guns blazing, straight to the top.
When I was thinking about who to put on the September cover, I chose Naomi Campbell. I was so honored to do it and so excited at the result, and Naomi looked amazing, and I think it was a statement that needed to be made.
Naomi is the god. She really is the queen of all things.
Everything she does is pretty incredible.
Phenomenal woman, one of my inspirations.
Queen Naomi Campbell. She is an icon. She's a legend.
When I first started, I used to watch Naomi so much.
She changed runway. Just in the way she carried herself with so much confidence and attitude. Still so graceful, literally just like a gazelle walking down the runway. That inspired so many Black women. The Naomi walk, we have the Naomi walk.
You know, the walk, you know, the face, the eyes, the lips, the legs.
Naomi got to the end of that runway. She had power stances. Sexy was strong back in the day.
She's so aware of every angle and where the camera is at all times.
Naomi Campbell has always used her voice. Part of her longevity is that she has recognized that she has a platform, and she has used that platform not only to be one of the greatest models of all time, but to be a voice for change.
And if you know Naomi, you know that she's like a buffalo soldier, a warrior who will go to the ends of the world to be heard and is unafraid to stand up for what she believes in. I know what Naomi had to endure to be a supermodel. She was never paid the same rates, So yes, Naomi has really paved the way for most of the Black models you see today. Her legacy will be, a woman who was never scared to speak out for herself and for her race and for a whole new generation. At the moment, she's like Mother Naomi now to the new generation.
Although, other than Naomi at that time, really, there still weren't really a lot of Black models getting covers. I mean, it was really, in the end, it was Naomi's game.
I remember us being two girls in the same studio. It was either gonna be her or myself that would perhaps get this cover. That's just how it was in those days. You couldn't have two Black girls getting two covers.
When you do a booking where you're shooting for a magazine, there's only one Black girl, and that can make you feel kind of always isolated.
It was just so wrong for so long, and it was actually kind of sad in a way, and created unnecessary competition between the Black models, I would say.
I think that probably they said there was a certain amount of Black girls that they would use in shows, in ads. I think that you probably are a bit more competitive with them because you want that job, you want that contract.
I think there was a fierce competition among Black models because simply the rule was if there are 3 models on the shoot, one of them has to be Black.
If there was one, there could only be one, which is why you don't see a lot of pictures of more than one of us on a photo shoot back then, because there could only be one.
the divide and conquer mentality, that your only competition you think is another black model, because that's how it's set up, is not all models.
I think often we're trained that there can only be one of us in a space at a time. I know that that's honestly just another way to make sure that there is only one of us.
There's a pressure to walk onto an all-white set and be the one.
I walk into the room, not only would I be the only black model, I would be the only black, colored, Latin person in a room, from assistants to makeup, hair, anybody in between. I was the only one. And a lot of the times you feel like, wow, do I actually belong in this space?
There was a reason why I was on a set. I filled the quota, and there were times where I was actually asked to leave a set because they didn't know how to deal with my hair. That's when it started to hurt.
For black models, hair for us is everything. Like, we love our hair. That's how we express ourselves as black people, as black women.
Hair was always an issue.
I remember walking in and seeing the fear on hair stylist's face because I didn't blow my hair out before I came in. It was points where I was doing my own hair.
So you would hear things like, your hair's really difficult, so can you, bring a wig? How I am, or how I was an inconvenience.
Why does that girl have tears streaming down her eyes because her hair's been fried off?
Tiny, like passing comments that somebody will make, like the fact that I have to bring all of my own hair supplies to set because I already know what's about to go on 99% of the time when I show up. We should not have to go through this every single day.
I was doing a show once where I used to wear extensions, and this is one of the reasons why I stopped wearing extensions. The stylist was just pulling on my hair, and I'm like, oh, it's extensions, and I got braids underneath. And she was like, I got it, I know, I'm just, And in that instant, whoop. So my braid got torn off my scalp. My hair got torn right out of my head, and I was about to walk on the runway. I lost my hair that will never grow back.
I had a cover try for Mademoiselle, which, had I gotten that would have immediately changed the entire trajectory of my career. They wanted straight hair. So they wanted, my hair to be blown out and pressed. And the guy couldn't do it. He had no idea how to do it. And there were, 3 other girls on the booking, none of whom were black. And guess who got sent home? If you don't know how to do your own hair and makeup to the level that a hair and makeup artist can do it, you can fail out of the business. Do you cry after work sometimes? Yeah. Like when someone says, who said to get somebody with Brillo pad hair in here?
We have no chance at the win if we don't use our voices. Even some of the models who did, they would say, oh, she's difficult to work with. And I would say, why? Because she has an opinion about how she looks, that she doesn't want to work with a hairstylist who has no experience with black hair.
I shrunk myself in a lot of situations. Some of the things that I wanted to make sure that were covered in that TED Talk were we're born and we're told that we're not good enough. I used to look in the mirror for hours thinking how much more beautiful I would be if my eyes were blue or green, if my nose was a little smaller, if my lips were a little smaller. We're embedded with such deep shame about ourselves at such a young age. Magazines where I would only see 2 or 3 black models amid dozens of white models made me feel like there was something inherently wrong with me. Your hair is too nappy, your nose is too big, our lips are too big, and our skin is too dark. Then I get to the fashion industry, and I'm told, we'll push for you when one of our other black models isn't available. You probably won't make it to the cover of any magazines, but we might be able to make you a little bit of cash. Sit in silence while I burn your hair off. Hair burnt and ripped from my scalp to the point where I had to cut it off and start over. By actually speaking up, we are honoring those who came before us and lifting them up with us.
Oh my God, Roshumba.
Yeah.
It does not get better than that.
No.
The divine beauty.
And she was so ahead of her time with that.
And she was a performance. You never took a picture of Roshumba. You caught the performance on camera.
We're trying to interview 2 and sub 6.
When I started out, I didn't realize I was shifting and making a mark for someone who looked like me. Back then, the look du jour when it came to, women of color, someone with long hair, I did go from not being the look to you're the one. At that time, I just was so naive. I didn't even know what that meant. I mean, now I know, because then you got like Alec Weck and a duck and all those other girls who have like the short cropped afro, and that started somewhere. And I'm very happy to say that started with me. I grew up in, a normal family. Everybody seemed to have something they wanted to do. I just was like, I don't know what I want to do. I just want to be a fabulous lady, because my mom was a fabulous lady. She was like the example of, beauty, elegance, grace. And I just wanted to be like my mom. I was taller than everybody, and I was skinny, and I didn't fit, and, I wasn't athletic. Where I connected was with an Elle magazine, and Iman was in that magazine, and that's when I knew. That day, the light bulb came on, and it was just like, I was obsessed, because she looked like me. It's like the bone structure, the body, the head, the coloring, and I just was like, oh my gosh. I remember going to an open call for Elite, and there was this guy there, and his name was Sterling Capriccio. He would get the bootleg tapes of the high fashion shows from Paris, and he would say, this is how you need to walk if you want to be a model. So I would watch the tapes, and he would practice me walking back and forth and up and down. At that time, I had regular shoulder-length hair. So he took me to Vidal Sassoon. Then I came out, and he's like, now you have a look. And then he said, you should really go to Paris, and the videos we've been looking at, you can do what they do. I only had $150 and a dream. Paris was everything. I just remember arriving in the airport, and the sounds were different. There was this language that I had never heard before. And I'll never forget, I get chills thinking about it. I looked up and the sky was purple. And then the smell, I just remember smelling strawberries. I was around the corner from the fresh market, so you could smell it. And then the sound of the people and the cafes. I think that instant, my whole reality shifted. I went to see several different agents, and most of them were like, no, we have enough black girls. I didn't know what that meant. And then there was one agent that said yes. They send me to see clients for the couture shows. And then one was the House of Saint Laurent. And it changed everything. I'm getting emotional because this was someone that I looked at his shows in Elle magazine. And then when you saw the YSL, and then I was there, it was just like, oh my God. And I would do that walk. I just remember the walk that I practiced 1,000,000 times, and I was actually doing it there. And then the next day, your agent called and they said, you have a job. I was like, what?
The list of black models that Yves Saint Laurent championed is legendary. In fact, his cabine, which is a group of the house models, is mostly black.
Mr. Saint Laurent hired me to be a fit model for the couture shows for Iman, believe it or not. And then the editors saw me, and that's when Elle called and Vogue. The whole world opened up. I interviewed with Elite, I interviewed with Ford. They were all like, yes, yes, yes. At this point, it was like, yes, yes, yes. She was the it girl. Someone's told me, you should work with this lady named Bethanne. I was like, okay. I was like, she's a black lady. She takes care of black models. You'll do well.
I stopped being on a runway, I remember that in 81, I think, 80, 81.
There was a lot of talk about this mythical Bethanne. What was she going to do next? Where was she going to pop up?
My first agent in America was Bethanne. When I went on board with her, it was just the most incredible experience and introduction into the industry. She began as a model, and then she became an agent. And I think that was a wonderful thing in that time for her to do. That's a huge undertaking because no one else was doing that.
I've been told that I had a good eye, and as I watched how I developed my model agency, I understand that I was having success. Bonnie Berman was the #1 model in the world. Ariane Kazumi was always in Vogue. And Veronica Webb came in the 2nd year of my business. She was successful. I had her go to Europe.
Bethanne has so many relationships.
She's everybody's agent. Everyone can call her and say, Beth, should I do this? Bethanne, should I do that?
Even though if we weren't with her agency, she just would still just carry us along with her.
She's a powerhouse.
The joy I had starting Bethanne Management, the memory of that is a joy I have out of the fashion industry.
I have another favor to ask you. I want to show you something right now.
Okay. Yes! Oh my God, I love it.
It's funny, there's like so many of us here in one place, it almost looks like it's photoshopped.
All of these girls, I know all of these women. I love, oh my God, and I love Karen Alexander.
This is awesome. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this is really sweet.
Well, that's me right there.
Kirsty Bowser, me, Karen Alexander, Naomi, Cynthia Bailey, Roshumba, Peggy Dillard, Iman, Gail O'Neill, Tyra Banks, Okure.
This is the Black Girls Coalition.
That was the coalition that was started by Bethanne and Iman, but it was a group of the Black women at that time who were really speaking up and standing up for diversity in the industry and representation.
I wanted to celebrate the Black fashion model because it had never happened before that so many models of color were working editorially. And so I said to Iman, I want to do like a ball, and I want to celebrate the Black fashion model. So that's how we started the Black Girls Coalition.
At that time, the people behind the scenes didn't have as much power, but the models did, because people were falling in love with us. And, it's just like, there was this movement that had become very powerful in the industry with these core, women.
Bethanne didn't want, are we in competition with other Black models because there's less opportunity for us? She wanted to bring it together that even if there was that competition, we had each other's back.
Individually, we were strong, but together, oh, honey, we brought the house down.
The Black models now have a really large voice, and we've all made our voices known, and I think that's helped too.
We would have events and we would invite people and we would speak about diversity and stuff like that, and we would raise money for charities, but because we were all united, the industry had to make shifts and make changes because they wanted to hire us.
It wasn't this sort of, well, there can only be one of us. We would be helping each other. What job are you doing? Or is this a good photographer to work with? And that's the part. We could talk about those things together.
You have all these powerhouses. They paved the way. They seriously paved the way.
The idea of having a tribe of people, it's quite very important for me, because nobody knows the trials and tribulations of a business unlike another sister.
And in the 90s, they really started to feel like things were getting equal. It started to feel like there was more Black girls on the runway and on covers of magazines.
It's this real moment where the model is also right along with the designer, becoming super important. And we're beginning to know the models by their names and the idea of the top model.